back again. Thank you all for joining. Like I said before, my name is Christella Wamahoro, and I am a coordinator for FinTech Hub. So FinTech Hub is the very first accelerator dedicated to fintech companies, and we support them to bridge their needs for skills, to navigate regulatory framework, and we support them to access markets and financing. So before we actually start our session, I would like to welcome our speaker, Emil Kinoma, who is the country director for TransUnion, who share more about himself, but he's been very supporting towards the ecosystem. He's been in this fintech industry for quite some time, and he's now experienced. He's an amazing expert who's been supporting the hub through mentorship and other guidance. Welcome, Emil Kinoma. Please take the floor and tell us more about yourself and the work you're doing with TransUnion. Thank you.
All right, Christelle, thank you very much. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here. I am here because I believe in fintechs and entrepreneurs, and I really believe that they have what it takes to really revolutionize the sector, the finance sector as we know it. So as you put it, I'm the country manager of TransUnion. TransUnion is the credit bureau of Rwanda, and we are an essential infrastructure for the country because it allows to establish trust. It allows banks to trust customers and customers to be able to reflect the reality to the banks and showing them that they can be trusted individuals with funds as well as companies. So this is what we do, and we are very happy to engage with you on a separate occasion to talk more about what the Bureau does. Before I became the country manager of TransUnion, I was the CEO of MobiCash, a fintech in Rwanda that specializes in payments, especially government payments. And we were able to help digitize the whole mutuelle de santé payment process, and we're very proud of that. We worked with various partners, including Irembo and RSSB. And that is, in a nutshell, what I bring to the table in terms of experience and credentials. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kinoma. Definitely, you bring a lot and more on the table, and we are very grateful to actually have you here. And I'll actually give a shout out to our founders and partners. So FinTech Hub is funded by UNCDF through the government of Rwanda, ICT and Minicom, and it's being implemented by ICT Chamber alongside with Kigali Innovation City. So let's get into it. Just to communicate this session is being recorded. In case you noticed a red button that keeps popping. So the session is being recorded. So basically the speaker, our very experienced speaker, will be sharing his respective perspective on a different topics. And since this session is pretty much for fintech companies, local fintech companies, we really wanted to understand from your perspective and experience, how would you advise a fintech company to in line of growth? How can they grow while making sure that they're using they're making best use of their time? And this is applied pretty much to them knowing what they should focus on in terms of functions, technology, and sales. And what would you say is really the most critical function when it comes to technology and sales? Over to you.
So thanks a lot, and that's a lot to unpack, but we can start. The first thing that I would tell all the fintechs is survive. Not everyone is going to live through the pandemic the same way. If you look, there are companies solutions such as mobile money, which are working very well. And there are others that are struggling just because, they were hoping to see a growth last year, and because of the pandemic and things slowing down, their their solution was not probably not yet well entrenched in the market to be able to reap the benefits of the technological changes that we experienced, and especially the changes in attitudes and consumers we experienced because of the pandemic. The pandemic did two things really in the areas of fintechs. Fintechs that were not aligned with customer needs died. They died agonizingly,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, it is sad to see them go, but it's time for them to focus on problems that customers need to be solved. And then there were those who were really caught the right wave with it. And to those, I always say, if you have cash flow problems, which is the story of most fintechs, hang in there. And to those that are going and that are thinking about trying new things, I'm telling them just focus on growth, because that's where you need to put in the most of efforts. Figure out how you can turn your product into a viral product. That's what you really need to focus on in the coming weeks, months, and coming year.
All right. So what you are saying is that for them to be able to grow, they should really focus more on developing their product.
Yes.
Awesome. So in terms of the stage, because
Mhm.
startups are at different stages,
Exactly.
and sometimes it's really it kind of confuse them when it comes to what they should, focus on depending on their stage or where they are at. So if you're looking at early stage fintech companies, say you already know the four companies that are in FinTech Hub. They are
Hmm.
still early stage, of course, but they're at different levels if you look at them. So what would you say is the right stage for them to be able to invest their time towards sales?
All right. And like you mentioned, there are different stages. A company like MobiCash really, this is an opportunity, and I'm not saying that's what they will do and what the issue is, but for a company at that stage that has experienced tremendous growth in the past 2 years and that is looking to do new things, this is an opportunity to trim down, to get back to the essentials and stop projects or initiatives that are not giving you a return on investment right away. Focus on your core, solidify it, and really, in some cases, and that will sound controversial, you will need to increase your prices, which is counterintuitive. The reason why is because if your service is critical and delivers value, to stay around, you need to increase your margin, which is very difficult to do in this environment. But this is where you really need now to hone down and create that strong relationship and bond with your customers. So it's an opportunity to reconnect. Then there's those who are experiencing tremendous growth within this period. And the
Mm,
funny thing about growth is, especially when it's coming at you very fast, it's painful. It's not a pleasant experience. Anyone who's had the privilege, because I do call it a privilege, to have been in a company that overnight went from 1,000 users to 100,000 users and hitting 1 million, it is painful. Your systems are crashing. You don't know where to put your energy. To those, I tell them, make sure that you always deliver to your customers, that you apologize for the mishaps, and you need to make sure that you keep that growth going for as far as you can. That's my advice for them. For those that are early stage, don't, if you have useless expenses like an office and whatnot, it's not that they're useless, but you don't need an office at your level. What you need to figure out is, what is the value that I'm delivering to customers? And you need to be very radical. You cannot be everything to everyone. So
Definitely.
choose wisely what it is that you want to do, right? And really every day engineer that point. Okay, your whole job is to figure out what you need to do so that the market reacts to what it is that you're giving. And if it's not going fast enough, you're not knocking on the right door. And this is what you need to kind of really focus at that point. And that is the view, in my opinion, about the three different, looking at the three different stages of companies that we have in our ecosystem.
Thank you very much. Dear fintech startups, I hope you understood what you gotta do. Thank you very much. I feel like that's a very important insight. And oh, sorry. Yeah, I think it's something that they really needed to hear, especially during these times, because I know that most of them are trying to really create new revenue streams. And at some point, they're looking at pivoting to new areas. So, like you shared, I believe that this is the right time for them to start engaging more with their clients and design solutions that are addressing the real needs that are on the market.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so moving forward, how as an entrepreneur yourself, as an experienced fintech player, how do you balance between focusing on customer acquisition and investment thinking? How do you balance, dealing with your clients and the investors?
Okay. And that's a very good point. And for those, there are different categories, of course. The companies that have sh- various investors and shareholders, you need to figure out how you're going to get a profit at the end of the year. They'll understand that this is COVID, but they're looking for you to see where are you going to drive growth in the future? What's coming down the pipeline, and how can we, and if we're going to raise money for this, what can we expect? Because you've already proven yourself. You've already have a model that's working. But what they want to know is, pandemic proof? Are you crisis proof? Can you weather the storm? And that's what a CEO who's at that level, an entrepreneur who's working at there, that's the conversation that he needs to have with his shareholders. Is saying it's going to be tough, yes, but here's the plan that I have for us to get on growth, and how this is how I'm controlling my costs. Now, for the person who's going in full growth mode, to them, I tell keep working hard, and and that's a bit of the difficulty. You'll need to either find someone in your company, and usually it's the CEO's job to also interact with investors, because you're onto something, and the little bit of money that you have is burning through quickly, because you're going to have to spend to make sure that you keep those customers happy. And this is where it's very tough, but you're going to have to roll up your sleeves and learn how to pitch to investors. Learn how to speak to get classes online. Whatever it is that you need to do to be better, to articulate your vision to investors, the easier it will be for you to raise the funds that you need to continue on your growth and expansion throughout different markets. To the people who are in their infancy stage, which is a lot of companies in Rwanda. The issue that I see them having is that they spend too much time trying to figure out how they're going to raise money, and not enough time on how am I going to produce to create the product that everyone wants to buy. They focus too much on the beauty of the product and how to get money, and not on the customers. They've all watched, Silicon Valley, and they've heard the stories of, yes, Paystack got 200 million. You got you need money to grow. The reality is this: If you're in Silicon Valley, you play the Silicon Valley game. If you're in Rwanda, you play the Rwanda game. So how does this play out? Well, you're going to have to find love money. Love money is your friends and families, and whatever money they can invest in you. That's what you start with. But the next thing you need to do is to figure out either extraordinary growth to show that whatever you have done is actually in sync with the market, or you're going to have to finance yourself with customers. You need paying customers. And you need to get rid of that immature not, way of thinking of believing that price should always be cheap. No, it's not. And there is no magic price. Price is not heaven sent. You discover it. You go through what you go through and try different things while you're growing. This is a game that is played when you're in growth. You can play with price, all right? But at the beginning, set your price at what covers your costs. Do not, and if you don't even, you feel you don't have traction, give it for free. If no one is getting it and it's free, then there's a problem with your product, not the customer.
Mm.
Yeah, so that
Yeah,
in a
that's.
nutshell.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I can actually relate as a person who spent so much time with entrepreneurs. I can really relate to everything that you just said. But let's say that my takes are number one, you need both.
Yeah,
Obviously, you need to gain new clients, but you also need to finance or refinance your business. And
exactly.
from what you said, you recommend that the CEO should deal with the investors and then
Yes.
have the rest of the team, you know, getting more clients, running the whole customer acquisition. So if you are following us and you are dealing with this, number one, know that you need both. They go hand in hand. And then you kind of touch based on the team that I would like to get your perspective on. As startups, you already know the local conditions. You already know that if they're having cash flows, they are operating on a very tight budget. So they tend to have challenges with the team. They could have
Mhm.
people who are freelancing sometimes, and then given even the pandemic, most of the companies lost their clients. They weren't operating. So how would you advise a startup, a fintech startup that is struggling with the team? They know that they need the team to deal with the clients, but now
Mhm.
you're just say the CEO or you have the CTO, you're just the two of you. So how can you recommend this company to work in relative to what we just said of balancing both customer acquisition and fundraising?
Yes, I mean, and this the reality of startups. If people thought that it's rosy and beautiful, it's not. In the end, it is, and it's definitely worth it. You come out of it a stronger person who is resilient. The reality is, it is very tough, and COVID does not make things easier. If setting up a company 3 years ago was tough in Rwanda in the pandemic, you're crazy. You and and everyone is chasing that glory, but what you should really be chasing is, am I bringing value to the people who are going to use my product or solution? That is what you should try to get your energies and resources focused on. Not on, you know what, I've reached this many users. Yes, celebrate as a team, but just know that this is what is going to keep you in the game. Okay? And it's very difficult in our environment to see people who are going to openly invest in your business. One, usually people don't understand what it is that you do, right? So
Mm.
it is, you will need to develop grit and hang in there and really make it. I wish there was an easier answer, you know, because the reality is when you're working in a startup, uh, forget about being paid regularly. It's
Mm,
depending what the cash flows you have. If you were lucky enough to have had a team of people who are able to raise enough for you to survive crisis, that's fine and that's lucky for you. But to all the others who do not have that, hang in there. It's not a pretty picture out there. And just look, you know, if you thought that it was tough to get payment from government, if your solution targets government, well, imagine if that delay stretches out. And that's why I say it's counterintuitive, but somewhere you'll have to raise your price to account for that. What not
mm,
to do is to reduce price, because your cost structure stays the same. It only changes over time, and with growth, you can do things to change it. But in the immediate, your cost structure stays the same. Your lease is on for a year. You can't renegotiate it mid-year. Some landlords are nice, but the reality is not all the landlords are nice. Your internet costs is going to stay the same. Your server costs are going to stay the same. You know,
mm,
so it's up to you to say, okay, if I increase this, it will give me a buffer. But what does it mean? You, as a CEO, as a startup, you need to know how to negotiate with your customers and show them this value. Don't just surprise them with it. That's a terrible idea. What
mm.
you need to do is prepare them. I'm going through X. This
Even
is a
if
service that I want to
even
get you
if you
to
have to be the
use.
only person on the team.
Yeah, you know, you got to make them feel that this is a journey we're going on together. And for me to survive, this is what it takes. All right.
Mm,
And be creative with the way you're sourcing funds. Don't look at banks as the bad guys. You know, banks are in it to make their money back. So
yeah.
they are not going to fund a startup. That is an idea we need to give up. So, but yes, it's really this time and where we're working right now, this
Mm,
pandemic, it's where those who are resilient and
mm.
dedicated to giving value to their customers, those are the ones who survive. All the others, as sad as it will sound, they'll just wither away.
All right. Thank you
Mhm.
very much. I think I will just rephrase the previous question in terms of team because we would
Mhm.
really love to hear your take on tips on how to build a sustainable team as a startup,
Okay.
because yeah, that's one of the key things, and we want to really encourage this team spirit, to know that even if you don't have access to the market now, but at least you have a team, and that team can go out there and gain more clients. So what is your
Exactly.
take on building a team as a startup, as a fintech startup?
When you start, when you are just at the beginning, you know, you're a young startup, what you need to find are like-minded people who share the same vision and are willing to go the distance to get
Mm,
this product off the ground, because it will demand, you know, various sacrifices from everyone to pull through. What I
mm,
usually recommend startups when they come to me and they ask for advice is 3 and 5 people make up a good starting team. Beyond that, you're going to run into trouble, especially if there's an investor that comes in. You're going to be get diluted, and he might be the dominant shareholder because all of you have so little shares that when he comes in, unless you get along fine with everyone else, your share is going to get diluted. So
mm,
focus on at first people who share the same vision and who are ready to sweat to get there. Once you get into growth, it is time to pack your organization with talent. Okay. A lot of mistakes that startups make, and I mean, when I started, that was my mistake. You have two types of people in a startup. You have those who have an equity stake in it, so they have shares, and employees. Uh, the logic in Rwanda is to say, since we're still a startup, I can't pay you well because we're a startup. That's the wrong way to look at it. If you are a shareholder, you have an access to the upside, you get paid less than market rate because you have the upside. But everyone else who comes into the startup with no shares should be paid above market price because they're taking higher risks to make that dream work. And if you're going to pay above market price, you better take someone who's worth it. You know, and as you pack your fintech with talent, the less expensive it's going to be to run. The problem is once you have an uneven number of talent within your startup, demoralization comes in. People will see that not everyone is pulling their weight, and that will hurt the performance of your company in the short to medium term. Okay. And the second thing you'd really need to be clear on is what are people going to get if things work out? I've seen many startups going to court, fighting with each other because things were not clear in the beginning. Or at least when things started getting better, no one had this tough conversation of saying, when this happens, this is the money you make. What usually happens is, oh my God, we got there. And then everyone starts fighting with each other. But I didn't see my newborn son for a year. How? I need to see the money too. You need to deal with these issues because these are people's lives you're dealing with. And that's really critical that you address that early on.
Thank you very much. I believe that we really understood you, and we can relate to what has been happening, in the whole startup scene when it comes to building a team, finding the right people you share the same vision, and the people who understand your current situation, really, because if you are honest with them and they know you're not making money for now, and then you come up with, I don't know, an agreement, an incentivized way of rewarding each other, if I may say. And yeah, it's really important that the teams, at least the companies that are on here, really understand what you just said and go back to their companies and even implement that. So thank you very much for that. So just a quick one for the audience. Our chat box is open for questions. We're going to go through the last topic, and then after that we'll be answering questions from the audience. So if you followed Emil Kinoma's introduction, he's been working in the fintech industry for quite some time. He was with MobiCash previously, and now he's with TransUnion, and we're trying to, besides, in addition to what happens, with the companies, how they grow, how they prioritize, what is really important at their stage, and, finding the balance between getting more clients and seeking for investment. But now they really, they are already part of this industry, and we believe that there are plenty of opportunities for them. And I would like to hear from you in terms of what are the available opportunities in the fintech industry, and how can the local fintech startups plug into that. And since we're lucky to have you, and you're from a big fintech company, TransUnion, and um, how can the startups work with you?
Oh, well, coming from the startup world, I know how hard it was to get through the door of the big boys. But I'm here to say that TransUnion is here to work and collaborate with you on innovative solutions. We're really trying to make a push into startups this coming year. Um, but at the present, we do not have publicly open APIs, but we do have APIs. But please
Mm.
feel free to engage me. My email address will be shared later on so that you can get in touch with me, or even through LinkedIn. Um, we're really looking to see how we can develop innovative solutions for the through our collaboration here, you see an opportunity to expand in a market like Kenya, where we also have a strong presence.
Mm.
That is something that will be very easy, and we really want to be able to spearhead that initiative going forward. So don't be shy about reaching out to us.
The chat box. But if you would like to answer email a question, please
Mhm.
raise your hand and we'll let you ask your question. And in the meantime, I think when you said, when we talked about the available opportunity in the industry, I know that you're also some of the leaders of the FinTech Forum here in Rwanda.
Mhm.
And if you could shed some more light on the recent trends in the industry and in light of the new opportunities that are there for startups, we would appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, one of the big opportunities that came out in the pandemic is how do you make payments seamless? Okay, there's been some
Mm,
efforts, okay, with no kanda and whatnot, but how do you make sure that no matter where your money is, you can pay for something? And being able to create those linkages in the back to give someone a better payment experience is one of the areas where you can definitely strive. The second area is digital lending. With the pandemic and people coming in and out of work, how do you facilitate access to credit? How do you give people who have been traditionally just getting bank data use
mm,
alternative data to demonstrate the credit worthiness of a person slash company?
mm,
How do we work together to be able to do that and really help the customer
mm,
and help citizens and businesses get access to credit to realize their full potential? So these are just two things that I mentioned now where fintechs can go in and and excel at it. And there's many things in between.
mm. Yeah, thank you so much. I haven't seen anyone raising a hand for questions yet. But if you want to ask a question, please feel free to just unmute, of course, in order. But you're welcome to ask questions or,
Yes.
suggestions or thoughts on what
Yeah.
on
So
the amazing conversation we just had.
so I just have a direct message
Oh,
from
yeah.
Redamta, who said she liked what I shared with the group in choosing a teammate, and she would like the best team to know the best team to share the vision. What I would say to Redamta is, how do you pick the best team? And for me, is tackle difficult projects. Tackle difficult, meaningful projects together. You will see who is a good teammate in dealing with those. It doesn't, not just tough, it has to mean something to you and to whoever you're trying to solve the issue with. And that's how you'll find out if you have a strong team or not. And that's how you'll choose a person to be part of your team or not. Okay, I hope that answers your question. And I have another question from Kelvin. Can you touch briefly about the stage at which startups have to move proactively to regulation bodies? Um, Kelvin, this one is easy. If you don't have growth, don't even bother. if you're not having traction with your solution, don't. It's once you're starting to see that you're addressing the issues of the market that you go and deal with the regulator. But here's the caveat I'll put in. If what you're trying to do is has serious legal implications, and usually when you're in those type of ventures, you'll know. I'll tell you to proactively go. But the advice I'm giving you, the regulators don't like it. But I will tell you, as someone who's had to deal as a fintech with compliance, if you start by compliance, you kill the innovation. Start innovating, find something that works, and then have a conversation as to how do we make this safe and compliant for everybody around. It's not a politically correct thing to say, but I just wanted to be honest with you. Because if you leave it in the hands of the regulator, they will poke too many holes in your idea, and you won't have the courage to go forward.
All right, thank you very much. I think Shema Steve raised her hand earlier. Shema, if you're still on, please go ahead and ask your question.
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Yeah, so two things. One is obviously to appreciate what Emil just shared, which is obviously spot on. And Emil is one of the guys that I've interacted with him a couple of times, and he's good at giving out or putting out the hard truth. And he does that with his. And for me, I think it's sometimes, we in the startup ecosystem, we need to hear people like those, not just to tell us, yeah, we're doing great stuff. And I think that's really something he does really good and very much appreciated. Now, the second point is more of a question. Now, I don't know if it's a question or it's a thought. I don't know. So one of the things that I've noticed is, for instance, when you're talking about picking a team, let me just, base on that.
Yeah.
Now, there are a number of scenarios you could look at, and trying to maybe you could either go, equity option. You could, if you don't have money to pay the salaries, or now if you do that, there's also another factor that plays into it. Is it worth giving out? How much is worth giving out, and to who? So that's another question, because you end up having probably company that have 5 to 10 people all on the cap table, which again creates another future problem, because tomorrow if you go to raise money or decision-making processes, that can also kill you in the end. And then you come back, you realize, well, some of these guys, this is maybe one of the experience we've faced, over the last few months, is some of the big companies are doing some good poaching.
Yes.
Now, yeah, you do some storytelling, I think I've been doing lots of pep talks, to some of my employees. You try to persuade them to stay with you, and then next thing you're like, there's one of my employees like, yeah, I really love it here, but then I need to get a loan to build, something with my family, and then this, have this opportunity to now be afforded this loan at a lower interest rate. And I'm like, wow, that's interesting. So how do you navigate through all of that? So the question is, because you could have all these formulas, here and there, and you also don't want a crappy product, when you've already given out your equity. So you have all those things, and it's just sometimes it gets all messed up, and so
I get you,
question
Steve,
if you thought,
Yes, and what I will tell you, and in your case, what I would say is, what is the ultimate value of your company? You need to figure this out. If you're going to go and make these HR decisions, what is the value of your company? Is your company performance? If it is, you're going to need to pay top dollar to get top talent. If your value, and there's no right or wrong answer, it applies to your company where you are. If your value is loyalty, you will appreciate the person who turned down whatever offer. It's two different types of companies. Again, there's no wrong or right. It really depends on what it is that you're trying to build. You know? And that is very counterintuitive. Like, yes, it hurts to see someone who's worked for you for let's say the last 10 years, and you got to let them go because they're not delivering. But at the same time, if your value is loyalty and someone comes into the company and say, oh, by the way, I'm leaving, if you're not paying me this, I'm leaving, well, you get rid of that person. My motto is hire fast, fire fast. Don't waste time dwelling on your mistake. Move on. You don't have that time luxury. You know, if you hire someone, you have 3 months to figure out what it is that you want out of them and deal with it. These are, and looking at what is the value that you want to put in is very critical. You know, you might have a company that says, you know what, our motto is Christian values. It's Muslim values. We want here people who adhere to the Bible. That is the value of that company. Then you orient your HR towards that. Again, not a right or wrong answer. The market will decide that. I hope that helps.
Interesting. Steve, I hope you got your answer. I hope that helped you in terms of, making decisions. We have another couple of questions. Waringa Kibi asked, where is the place of share options right at the start of your top talent?
So this issue of share options is, for me, the better way to deal with top talent if you do not want to give them shares outright. But you need to be ready to have the balance sheet to be able to do that. And for me, yes, if you want top talent, make sure that, because share options gives you the opportunity to pay that top talent below market price. But in return, you're saying, if the company does well, you'll have a share of the upside. And that's a conversation the shareholders need to be comfortable with, and it's at that level where the shareholders set the tone for how the company is going to deal with top talent.
All right, thank you. Remember, we kind of touched based on a pivoting option, especially during these times where some of the business weren't operating, and at some point people lost business, right? And the other option was to create new revenue streams, and pivoting was one of the potential options because they had already identified the challenges, and they could have, start thinking about new products that are addressing the need on the market. So what do you think is the right time for a startup to pivot?
So pivoting, the best way to explain this is firing the plant before you fire the CEO. So pivoting is best when you know, or you have a strong belief in the team that you have, but you're attacking the wrong problem, or the manner in which you're dealing with it is wrong. So you should start to pivot when you see that there's no longer traction, or whatever you're going after is a dead end. But you're confident enough that the team that you have around you is bound strongly to attack another tough project, or something that you've seen in whatever you were doing that you felt because of constraints, XYZ, money, time, resources, you did not go after it. But now that plan A is not going right, now you have the focus and the energy to go after plan B.
Fair enough. So if you are in the process of pivoting at the moment, or if you are considering pivoting to a new product, you've heard what you gotta do. And of course, if you need more guidance, we're here to support you. And Emil is more than happy to give more guidance, right, Emil?
Of course, of course.
All right, thank you very much. We've received another question. I can pronounce the name.
Is you? He's saying, speaking of paying simultaneously,
Yes.
do you mean mobile payments? A picture of mobile payment Rwanda. What is the picture of mobile payment in Rwanda? Pay with SMS, QR code, facial recognition via phone. The dominant digital form of payment in Rwanda is mobile money. MTN is dominant. All these other solutions that you've mentioned, they are here, but they're really marginal. So there's the big opportunity. The challenge now is to, how do you make these forms of payment ubiquitous in a land that is dominated by mobile money?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what's up in Rwanda. I assume that this person, I'm sorry, I failed to pronounce his name, Yuliu. I think I assume that he's not based here, but we really appreciate that he managed to join us, and now he has an idea about how the industry is here in Rwanda. So if you don't have more questions, we don't want to take much of
the
your
last
time.
one
It's
from
already...
Sarah.
Oh, there is? Yeah, please.
Yeah, there's from Sarah Kaviruka. Let me just go quickly over this one. Thanks a lot for sharing. I like what you said about building product based on customer needs. My question is, what do you think about the challenges faced by startups to get licenses from institutions in charge? It's tough. FinTech is a highly regulated field. It's just part of doing business. So it's something that you'll have to take into account if you want to get into that field. Or if you really feel that your solution is that amazing, put it out there and see how the world functions. And if people like it, then you'll have a case to go to the regulator. This is what they needed all along. How can we work together?
Yeah, that's quite straightforward. I actually meant to ask if among the audience there will be someone from the regulator, the regulation word, because I sense that someone from the regulation word could actually agree to disagree with what you said earlier.
And I know they should. And you know what? They should. I'm not, this is not something that they should encourage. But what I'm saying as a regulator, no, you don't want to see these things develop in your ecosystem, right? Because you want to minimize risk. But for me as an entrepreneur, I'm trying to solve difficult problems for my customers. And I need to try things out. I need the right to try them out, not do anything criminal, but ensure that when doing so, I'm actually addressing the right issue. And you know, the reality is 99% die anyway. So try.
Yeah. So fintech, but mostly financial services are, highly regulated. I believe that we'll have another session that is especially allocated to how to navigate the regulatory framework. But as of now, I think we'll just end our session here. And I would like to really appreciate everyone who joined and everyone who participated, asked questions, and special thanks to our speaker. Thank you very much for your time, and your contribution to the system is highly appreciated. I keep telling you this because whenever I'm like, oh, Emil, do you want to do this? You're like, I am in. So I really appreciate that. And FinTecHub and its partners in general, we really appreciate that. And for you all who are not familiar with FinTecHub, what it does, we actually, the first cohort will be completed by March, by the end of March. So we'll start the new recruitment process for the upcoming cohort. So head over to our site. I'll drop the link in the chat box. Head over there and check us out, and write us on social media. We're on Twitter, we're on LinkedIn and Instagram, and we'll share more details about what we do and how you can be part of this. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Christelle, for the invitation. It was a pleasure.
My pleasure. All right, have enjoyed the rest of the day, and
Bye,
stay
everyone.
tuned for more episodes on this.